You've seen it before. A phone screen at 4 a.m. Someone telling you how they built their fifth passive income stream. And you feel tired, not because you haven't worked hard enough, but because somewhere along the way, the rules of the game changed, and nobody told you exactly when or how. This video is going to tell you. They sold us the ultimate aesthetic, the laptop on a Bali beach, the morning routine videos filmed in perfect golden light by someone who somehow has time to journal, meditate, and run 5 miles before their first meeting. The influencers looking directly into the camera, telling you that if you are not making money while you sleep, you are failing at life. Be your own boss, they said. The corporations, the platforms, and the culture they built around both. Escape the matrix, grind while they sleep. And it looked so real, it looked so possible, because you could see it. The before and after screenshots, the passive income dashboards, the guys in their 20s supposedly making 6 figures from a laptop in a coffee shop. The aesthetic was airtight, the story was consistent, and we were exactly the right audience for it. A generation that grew up watching the traditional path collapse in real time, desperately looking for an alternative that actually made sense. So, we bought it. We downloaded the apps, we traded the gray corporate cubicle for the driver's seat of our own cars, or the isolation of our own bedrooms. We honestly thought we were hacking the system. But let's be brutally honest. We didn't escape the matrix. We just downloaded an updated version of it directly onto our phones. Here's a question. Think about the last time you accepted a gig, took a delivery, or said yes to a freelance job you didn't really want. Not because you were excited, but because you felt like you had no other choice. Now ask yourself, who was actually in control of that decision? Because here's what they never put in the marketing materials. When you drive for a rideshare app, deliver food, or freelance on massive platforms, you aren't the boss. The algorithm is your boss. And the algorithm is the most ruthless, unfeeling manager you will ever have. It doesn't have a face. You can't argue with it. It doesn't care if you have a migraine. It doesn't care if your rent is due and you are desperate for cash. It will suppress your profile or drop your rating simply because you didn't accept enough jobs at 2 a.m. And here's the part that never makes it into the ads. The algorithm is a behavioral trap. It is engineered, deliberately, by teams of very smart, very well-paid engineers to keep you working longer than you planned. It manipulates your behavior with gamified rewards. One more delivery and you hit your bonus tier. One more ride and you maintain your streak. 5 more tasks and the app sends you a congratulations notification with a little trophy. These systems were not designed to help you reach your goals. They were designed to make sure you keep generating revenue for the platform long after your own goals would have told you to stop. It's the same psychology as a slot machine, and you're sitting inside it alone at midnight in a parking lot, wondering why you can't seem to get ahead. But the real magic trick, the part that makes this whole system genuinely brilliant from a corporate perspective, is the offloading of expenses. When you become an independent contractor, the corporation pays for nothing. You buy the car, you pay for the gas, the maintenance, the insurance, the high-speed internet, the laptop, the software subscriptions. You absorb 100% of the operational risk. You cover your own health insurance, if you can even afford it. And here's the number most people don't know. As a self-employed worker, you pay a 15.3% self-employment tax on top of your regular income tax because you're covering both the employee and employer share. A traditional employee only pays half of that. The platform, meanwhile, simply skims a massive percentage off the top just for connecting the code. They effectively crowdsourced their overhead. They turned us into micro-corporations that bear all the costs but reap a fraction of the profits. Now think about what this replaced.
Our parents and grandparents love to remind us how they bought a house, raised 3 kids, and took annual vacations on a single income. And yes, that wasn't universal. It wasn't true for every family, every city, every background. But here's what was true. The infrastructure existed. The math could work. A single paycheck could cover a life. You could graduate, find a relatively normal job, and expect to survive. That baseline existed, and it was real. The 9 to 5 wasn't perfect, it was rigid, it was boring. Sitting under fluorescent lights for 40 years isn't exactly a dream, but it came with a fundamental trade-off. You gave them 40 hours of your week. In an exchange, the corporation absorbed the risk. They paid for the office. They paid for the equipment. They provided the health insurance, the paid time off, the retirement match, and the sick days. If the company had a slow week, you still got your paycheck on Friday. The risk was on their shoulders. Then, 2008 happened. The system broke down. Corporations panicked, and they realized that keeping full-time human beings on the payroll was just too expensive for their profit margins. Employees mean liability. Employees mean human resources, legal protections, and benefits. And as the recovery began, slow, uneven, and deeply unequal, a new class of technology companies emerged with a very different vision of what work could look like. Not better work, just work that was cheaper to provide. They needed a loophole. They needed a way to keep the labor but ditch the liability. Enter the gig economy. It was packaged in bright colors, sleek app designs, in the promise of absolute control. The marketing was genius because it weaponized our own desire for autonomy against us. We knew we hated the toxic corporate ladder, so they built a digital treadmill, painted it gold, and told us it was a path to the top. And they masked this massive downgrade in living standards with the language of empowerment. If you're struggling to pay rent on your primary salary, the system no longer blames stagnant wages or an artificially inflated housing market. It doesn't point at corporations recording record profits while simultaneously laying off thousands. No, the system says it's because you don't have 3 distinct streams of income. It's a psychological trap, and it is designed specifically to make you feel guilty for resting.
We are playing a game of Monopoly, where all the property was bought up before we even rolled the dice. The houses are already on Broadway, the railroads are already owned, and every time we point that out, the bank changes the rules and calls it innovation. The side hustle was sold to us as the great equalizer, the digital bootstrap that would let anyone build wealth from scratch. But it's really just a mechanism to keep us so busy, so distracted, and so exhausted that we don't have the energy to question why the rules are rigged in the first place. We are burning ourselves out at record speeds, developing chronic fatigue, extreme anxiety, and complete burnout, all while chasing a financial security baseline that our parents achieved by just showing up to a building and doing the bare minimum. We are literally working 3 jobs just to afford the privilege of being priced out of the housing market anyway, training our youth, our energy, and our mental health for the illusion of getting ahead, only to find that the finish line keeps moving further away every single year. When did rest become a reward you have to earn? Think about that for a second. At what point did the baseline, sleeping enough, having a weekend, sitting with a friend over coffee without filming it or turning it into content, become something you have to justify? We are living through the financialization of our entire existence. Every waking moment is now viewed through the lens of potential profit. Hobbies are no longer just for joy, they're unrealized revenue streams. If you like to bake, you should sell your cookies. If you like to draw, you should be taking commissions. If you play video games, you should be streaming. Relaxation is framed as lost productivity. Friendship is a networking opportunity. Your personality is your personal brand. This is not a description of freedom. This is a description of a system that has successfully colonized every corner of your life and convinced you to be grateful for it. So, here's what seeing the trap clearly actually means. It means you stop blaming yourself for not grinding hard enough.
Your exhaustion isn't a personal failure, it's a designed outcome. The system runs more smoothly when you're too tired to ask why your full-time job doesn't cover rent. That's not an accident, that's the architecture. It means you start measuring your time differently. Not every hour needs to be monetized. Not every skill needs a price tag. Taking a walk without a podcast playing on 2x speed is not a waste of time. Sleeping 8 hours is not a sign of weakness. Reclaiming your weekend isn't laziness, it's resistance. In a world that profits from your exhaustion, rest is not a reward you earn after being productive enough. Rest is something you're entitled to simply because you are a human being. And it means understanding that the conversation needs to shift at a scale bigger than individual choices. We need to stop asking, how do I hustle harder, and start asking, why are wages still where they were 30 years ago? We need to stop asking, what app should I sign up for next, and start asking, what rights am I actually entitled to as a worker, regardless of what the platform calls me? The label of independent contractor was not designed to give you freedom. It was designed to strip you of protections. Naming that clearly is the first step toward demanding something different. True freedom isn't monetizing every second of your weekend. True freedom is having a job that pays you enough to actually enjoy the weekend. It is having the mental space to exist without constantly performing, optimizing, or justifying your rest. We don't need more gigs. We don't need more side hustles. We just need to be paid what our time, our energy, and our lives are actually worth. And now that you see how the trap was built, you can finally stop running inside it. Thank you for watching Priced Out. Subscribe here to see more Priced Out videos.